Reeves, Dream Hoarders, How the American Upper Middle Class is Leaving Everyone Else in the Dust, Why That Is a Problem, and What to Do About It. In the book A Dream Hoarders, author Richard Reeves takes a critical look at America's widening economic gap between the upper middle class, which constitutes the top 20% of the income distribution, and the remaining 80% of the population. Reeves argues that the top quintile has successfully rigged the competition to maintain and protect its status, passing it on to their descendants. He sheds light on opportunity hoarding, the disproportionate growth of wealth among the upper middle class, and how this results in exclusionary tactics that limit access to quality education, healthcare, and other necessities for the majority. The book further explores various initiatives that can help bridge this gap and provide a more equitable distribution of opportunities.
Overlooked wealth gap. The economic inequality discussion in America is incomplete. While experts concentrate on the richest 1%, another more crucial concern of the disparity between the upper middle class and the remaining 80% of the population is often neglected. The wealth of the top quintile is spiraling while their status remains untouched through competition and inherited by their descendants. The illusion of a classless society. The American dream promises that anyone who works hard can rise in the economic hierarchy, but in reality, a rigid class system exists in the U.S. Despite the lack of formal mechanisms of class structure, the upper middle class has found effective ways to maintain their status and pass it on to future generations. The income gap between the top 20% and the rest of the population has widened, with the upper middle class enjoying a considerable increase in income. The top quintile now holds more than 87% of the nation's wealth, with over 50% belonging to the upper middle class. These results show that the upper middle class does not win by being better, but by rigging the competition. In conclusion, the U.S.'s implicit promise of upward mobility is an illusion that hides the reality of a hierarchical class system that is becoming more entrenched every day. The reality of opportunity hoarding in America. The American dream is rooted in the idea of merit, where an individual's skills and knowledge determine their success, irrespective of their birth. However, in reality, the top quintile of society enjoys more opportunities to acquire skills that the market values, resulting in a growing class divide between the upper middle class and the rest. The upper middle class is hoarding opportunities, including those related to higher education. While this is often driven by parents' aspirations for their children, the result is greater inequality. Children from the upper middle class receive exclusive access to quality education, personal enrichment, and academic tutors, giving them a significant advantage in university admissions. This deprives lower-income students of a level playing field and reinforces the existing social and economic hierarchy. Unfair advantages for upper middle class children. The upper middle class engages in hoarding behaviors that give their children an unfair advantage in life. These schemes include exclusionary zoning, legacy admissions programs in colleges, and unpaid internships. Exclusionary zoning blocks the construction of homes that could accommodate lower-income families, creating barriers around upper-middle-class neighborhoods. Legacy admissions programs offer preferential consideration for the sons and daughters of alumni. Top colleges in the U.S. practice this seemingly un-American form of inherited entitlement. The acceptance rate for legacies at Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Georgetown and Stanford is 2 to 3 times the overall admission rate. Internships, which have exploded in popularity with employers, provide a massive boost to young members of the upper middle class in their transition from college to the workplace. Employers rank internships as the primary factor in a hiring decision. Unfortunately, more than half of internships pay no salaries, which means that only those young people whose parents can subsidize them can take advantage of them. These hoarding behaviors distort market competition in favor of their kids, leaving others at a disadvantage. Social mobility and the top 20%. In the pursuit of social mobility, the fact remains that for those in lower income quintiles to move up to the top 20%, those already in the top 20% must fall out. The limited capacity of the top 20% makes the fall precipitous due to the chasm between it and the 80%. The vicious cycle that ensues is reinforced by those in the top quintile using their advantage to maintain their position through zoning laws, preferential college admissions practices, professional licensing requirements, among others. Creating a level playing field. The U.S. must focus on reducing inequalities in childhood opportunities to ensure a fair distribution of human capital. 7 steps can help to achieve this. The United States is a classless society that values equal dignity among all irrespective of economic status. However, the disparities in opportunities that exist in the early stages of life, before entering the labor market, can have a lifelong impact on human capital. Therefore, to create a more level playing field, the U.S. must reduce the inequalities that exist in childhood opportunities. While reforms in this area may find disfavor with both sides of the political spectrum, there are 7 steps the U.S. could take to provide equal opportunities to develop human capital and discourage opportunity hoarding. Firstly, increasing access to modern contraceptive methods and educating the population on contraception could reduce unplanned pregnancies in lower-income quintiles, which is a major factor in the unequal accrual of human capital. Secondly, improving parenting skills across society would help lower-income children enjoy the same family advantages as their wealthier peers. Expanding home visits from social workers, health aides, and educators that can provide support and advice would be a promising strategy. Thirdly, America should reform teacher compensation to reflect instructional performance and contribution to education. Rewarding teachers with higher pay in low-income areas would attract better teachers to urban public schools and improve academic performance, thereby increasing rates of college attendance, college quality, and lifetime earnings. Fourthly, increasing access to college by replacing the student loan program with an IRS-administered system that ties repayment obligations to income, funding public universities fully, and enhancing vocational programs and 2-year community colleges, would be essential in promoting social mobility and creating an even playing field. Additionally, the government should cultivate apprenticeship opportunities by offering tax incentives to employers. Fifthly, ending exclusionary zoning by allowing the development of lower-cost housing such as townhouses, duplexes and triplexes would help to lessen wealth segregation and lower economic barriers to living near good schools. Sixthly, qualified applicants should mount legal challenges against legacy practices in college admissions on constitutional grounds to discourage preferential treatment. The government could also cut off federal financing to institutions that use legacy criteria or disallow tax deductions on donations. Finally, to democratize internships, the government should regulate internships, ensure minimum wage and fair employment standards, and expand financial aid to provide support for internship opportunities. By reducing disparities in early childhood opportunities, America has the potential to create a more level playing field and ensure a fair distribution of human capital. The role of the upper middle class in achieving equity. To achieve a more equitable society in the United States, the upper middle class must acknowledge their privilege and let go of entitlements like the 529 savings plan, which mainly benefit the top 20%. The government may need to raise taxes on the wealthiest and reform tax expenditures to fund equality initiatives. However, representatives from affluent constituencies lobbied against equitable changes in 2015. The American dream is at risk, and it is up to those with privilege to address the inequality problem. Breaking down societal walls. The American dream endures, however, its accessibility has been confined to the top 20% due to constructed barriers. To cultivate a just and fair society, the affluent upper middle class must embrace that they hold an excessive amount of power, accountability, and wealth. They must set aside their self-interest and contribute to bridge the gap in America's society.
Reeves highlights the necessity for the upper middle class to acknowledge their responsibility in perpetuating inequality in America, and challenges them to accept the need for personal sacrifice and systemic reform. By taking measures to reduce unplanned pregnancies, narrow the parenting gap, reward teachers in low-income areas, increase access to college, end exclusionary zoning and legacy preferences in college admissions, and democratize internships, the United States can build a more equitable society and allow more people, regardless of their economic background, to fulfill the American dream. However, the journey to change begins with the top 20% recognizing the urgent need for reform and their vital role in addressing this pressing issue.